So let's dive into one of the most explosive questions in world politics right now. We're going to unpack the source material and look at a pattern of events that raises a really serious question. Is Israel's prime minister actually extending a war to save his own political skin?
Our story kicks off on a single, incredibly dramatic day, February 28, 2026. While the world's eyes are glued to Operation Epic Fury and missiles are hitting Tehran, another high-stakes drama back in Jerusalem comes to a screeching halt. The trial that could literally decide the fate of a nation's leader suddenly goes silent.
And this visual really tells you everything you need to know. You've got these two rooms. In one, Benjamin Netanyahu is the commander, the leader of the war cabinet, making life and death decisions for millions. But then, just a few miles away, there's another room where his chair is empty. Because in that room, he's not the prime minister. He's a criminal defendant, staring down a trial that could end his entire career. The war puts him in one room and keeps him out of the other. Okay, so to really understand the gravity of all this, we need to zoom in on what was happening in that courtroom. What exactly was on the line for Netanyahu personally? Well, he's not just facing one little charge. He's up against a whole slate of serious accusations across 3 different cases, all rolled into one massive trial. We're talking 1 count of bribery, 3 counts of fraud, and 3 of breach of trust, which is basically a legal way of saying he's accused of abusing his power for his own benefit. This isn't some small issue. It's a legal saga that's been shaking up Israeli politics for years. Now, the big one, the charge that's considered the most severe, is called Case 4000, and the accusation at its core is pretty stunning, that the Prime Minister of Israel traded government favors, big ones, in exchange for getting good press for himself and his wife. This isn't about some misunderstanding, it's a straight-up bribery charge. And the scale here is just staggering. Prosecutors allege that the favors he granted to the telecom giant Bezek were worth something in the ballpark of $500 million. That number alone tells you how serious this is. And it's not like this was a one-off thing. In another case, he's accused of taking over $250,000 worth of luxury gifts. We're talking fancy champagne cigars from billionaires, all allegedly in exchange for political favors. The source material points to a real pattern of alleged corruption. So here's the bottom line. The thing that really matters. If he's convicted on the most serious charges, Netanyahu could face up to a decade behind bars. This isn't just about his job, it's about his freedom.
And this is where the timing becomes absolutely critical. The sources highlight that just as prosecutors were in the middle of a cross-examination that many observers thought was just devastating for the defense, the war started. And boom, under emergency rules, the trial stopped for 6 whole weeks. All that legal pressure just vanished.
You know, that pause in the trial, it leads us to the core accusation that the source material explores. The idea that a series of actions during the war weren't just a coincidence, but might actually point to an intentional effort to delay things. So this is the central question, isn't it? Did the prime minister, after entering a war for what he called strategic reasons, then go on to manage that war in a way that just happened to drag it out? Could his own legal problems have influenced decisions that cost human lives? Look, there's no smoking gun here, but the pattern of events makes you have to ask. All right, let's walk through this timeline, because this is really the heart of the argument. Look at this sequence. February 28th, war starts, trial stops. Got it? Then, April 7th, a bit of hope. The US and Iran announce a ceasefire. But right after that, Israel launches its deadliest wave of attacks of the entire war on Lebanon. Just a few days later, the peace talks in Islamabad collapse. And guess what happens on April 12th? The minute the fighting pauses, his trial is right back on the schedule.
Now, those strikes on Lebanon weren't just random. Iran had laid out a 10-point plan for a permanent peace deal, and a key condition was that Israel had to stop hitting its ally, Hezbollah. So you can imagine, every single Israeli missile that landed in Lebanon while negotiators were trying to talk peace, well, it was also a direct hit on the peace process itself. It basically gave Iran the perfect excuse to walk away from the table.
So this all brings up the question of motive. I mean, if these actions really did sabotage a chance for peace, why? The source materials suggest it all comes down to a cold political calculation, one that's all about survival. The logic, when you lay it all out, is brutally simple. A conviction before the October 2026 election, career over. Peace? That means the courts reopen, the trial speeds up, and that conviction gets a lot closer. But war buys time. Time to find some kind of political solution, time for public opinion to maybe change, or time to try and secure a pardon. And that brings us to the other major battlefront in this fight for survival. Because while the war was creating delays, another strategy was being deployed in the background. A full-on push for a presidential pardon, which could just wipe the entire legal slate clean.
And the pressure for that pardon was coming from the very, very top. I mean, just look at this quote from Donald Trump, who is Netanyahu's most powerful ally on the world stage. It's just extraordinary. You have the sitting president of the United States publicly demanding that Israel either cancel a domestic criminal trial or that its president just pardon Netanyahu.
But here's the thing. Israel's own institutions, they pushed back. While Trump was calling President Herzog weak for not going along with it, Herzog came out and publicly said the country's dignity was not for sale. The Justice Ministry also took a look and said the pardon request didn't even meet the criteria. So a pardon was no sure thing, which made all that extra time bought by the war potentially even more valuable. So where does all this leave us? Well, the source material doesn't give us a neat and tidy verdict. Instead, it seems to argue that just asking the question is the most important part of this whole story. And let's be absolutely clear about this. The sources we've compiled for this explainer do not present a smoking gun. There is no leaked memo, no secret confession. What we do have is a pattern, a strange and disturbing correlation between military actions, diplomatic failures, and the Prime Minister's personal legal calendar. And this quote right here really gets to the heart of why this matters so much. Asking if a leader is putting their own survival ahead of the national interest, especially during a war, isn't some wild conspiracy theory. In any real democracy, that's called accountability. That's what journalism is supposed to do. And this story is still being written. The ceasefire with Iran is fragile at best. Tensions are still incredibly high. The war could flare up again at any moment. And meanwhile, back in that courtroom in Jerusalem, the prosecutors are picking up right where they left off with their cross-examination. These two storylines are still running side by side, balanced on a knife's edge. Which leaves us with this final critical question. When the timeline of a war seems to sync up almost perfectly with the timeline of a leader's legal troubles, when decisions of life and death might be influenced by the desire to stay out of a jail cell, who is actually being served? Is it the nation? Or is it the individual in charge? That's the uncomfortable question at the center of it all.